These are some of our best public land whitetail hotspots.
And today, it's all about feeder creek crossings. So most of the time, your public land is going to sit around a river system or a major creek system because that land tends to be lowland, floodplain type stuff. It's of not a lot of value to a lot of people, especially ag cattlemen, that kind of thing. So it ends up being public, and in this case, we've got a piece here that is built similar to that. It's the public kind of forms around this creek system that's going east and west here. KC found this spot. Talk about feeder creeks a little bit.
Okay, so feeder creeks are going to be like a secondary or even tertiary creek into the main water system. And usually they either are very deep or they have a lot of heavy tree growth around them, brush, whatever it might be, and it's going to restrict whitetail movement. Here's the thing with deer, guys. Deer travel riparian areas. If you find the major water source, creek, river, or whatever, they're going to be walking parallel to that thing most of the time. And what they're going to run into are these feeder creeks. And there's only certain places they can cross these feeder creeks, at least a lot of the time. So what we found here is a feeder creek into a river on a piece of public land in Iowa that we have hunted. We didn't hunt this particular place, but I think it would be a good spot. And what's going on here is this is a very deep feeder creek. You can tell because the lines, the topographical lines here are real close together. So that means that when you were to walk up to this thing, big drop off, all right? Well, if you zoom in real tight here on the open spot there to the west of that feeder creek, you can kind of see that there's a little bit of line of travel, so maybe even a trail that leads right down to the base of that feeder creek right next to where that creek hits the river. What that means is that these deer don't want to cross this feeder creek except for right next to the river because it flattens out and it's not so steep for them to go up or for them to go down and then up. They can go down close to the river and have kind of a gradual crossing.
Mm-hmm. And you can see that with the topo lines there. You can see how they start to space out towards the river right there and flatten out. Mm-hmm. Another thing that I would check for on this feeder creek, if you're walking in and you get the chance to do it, is possibly another trail that comes up on the head of that really steep part right there where you can see it also flattens up a little bit higher in the country there. Mm-hmm. And that actually leads up to a cornfield that I had marked as corn while I was up there. So something just to, it might actually be a good spot for somebody if they were actually able to find this on the map.
If you draw this year, go there.
That's right.
So one of the things you really got to consider when you're setting up to hunt a feeder creek like this is you got to think about where your stand position is in relation to the crossing. You got to really consider wind directions, and one of the big things that I think about is when these deer cross creeks, they're going to go down and up. You don't want to be on that upside and that deer be looking right at you in your tree stand. So be sure and set up, you know, above or below the crossing. That way that deer doesn't come up and look right at you and bust out.
Mm-hmm. And another thing I would also think of when you're setting up is your wind, obviously. Most of the time you're going to have a north and south wind, north or south wind. And so on this particular river system here that heads east and west, that sets up and bodes pretty well for you. I think that if you've got a north or south wind, you could hunt this particular feeder creek crossing because you're gonna, you want to set yourself up to get a shot before they get to your wind, and you should be able to do that one way or the other because it's gonna be a last second thing. They're gonna be right there before they get to your wind. You're gonna shoot them, and that's how a feeder creek system works.
You want to shoot them, right? So, remember, guys, if you like this type of video, be sure and subscribe below, and then hit that link right there, and we will talk much more about our public land hotspots for whitetails. Otherwise, remember, this is your element.
Live in it.